Hello, I'm Jonathan Steed. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Crystal Growth and Design, published by the American Chemical Society. And this video is about how to get published in Crystal Growth and Design specifically, and for that matter, international scientific journals in general, based upon my experience as an editor and as an author as well. And I'm doing this video as part of a promotion that we have on at the moment in Crystal Growth and Design, which is called A Day in the Life of a Lockdown Crystal Engineer. So a lot of the days in my life during lockdown are based on editing your manuscripts. So I'm seeing a lot of chemistry coming in, and I expect you're spending a lot of your time writing chemistry as well. So this is perhaps a timely video. Okay, I thought I'd start out by talking about what makes a good paper. If the paper is good, then it's highly likely to impress us at Crystal Growth and Design and get accepted by the referees. And a good paper isn't just a data dump at the end of the day. A good paper should tell a story. It should have a hypothesis, a scientific hypothesis, and the data should be there to establish and verify, or for that matter, disprove that hypothesis, and result in a scientific conclusion, an advancement of knowledge. As part of that, it's your job as an author to point out what is new and what is novel about your science, and emphasize why it's important, its impact. But please avoid hype. Try not to make claims that are exaggerated. The referees that will be seeing your paper and the editor that will be handling it are intelligent scientists, and they can smell something fishy when they see it. So stick to the facts, stick to what's realistic. Otherwise, your paper will be rejected pretty quickly. Do, of course, compare your work with existing work, and that means citing work that's relevant. People do cite other people because they want to impress them with the fact they're citing them. It's really better to stick to the science and cite all the relevant background material upon which your research builds, and naturally that will include the most important groups in the field. You should avoid personal criticism, even if you're writing an opinion piece or a perspective article. Talk about the facts and about the science and what is and what isn't proven, not who did and who didn't prove it. Make certain your paper discusses ideas rather than just data. You'll be judged upon how creative your ideas are, not how good your data collection is, though of course good data is an important prerequisite to be able to establish a scientific hypothesis. For us at Crystal Growth and Design, the work should be of general interest across the crystallization and crystal engineering community. Very, very niche work is usually not suitable for a broadly read journal like Crystal Growth and Design. Although if something is of particular specialist importance, then obviously we would consider that as well. And crucially, we're looking for hypothesis-driven science, so that comes back to the story again. When you're writing the paper, think about the audience. The people that are reading it, English is often not their first language, even though papers are published in English. And so keep the language simple, keep it concise, try and get your story across without going into lots of useless detail. That's what the supplementary information is for. So try and use short sentences and use short words. Make certain you use spelling and grammar check. Occasionally things can go horribly wrong when you end up saying things you don't mean, and that can be embarrassing. We've seen some bloopers over the years, which are probably a bit unsuitable to share in this forum, but I'll show you some relatively clean referee comments later on. And you'd be amazed, proofread your paper before you submit it. I received one paper when I was an associate editor at ChemCom, which for the main title of the paper, in the largest font on the first page, it said, "Title goes here." You can understand that went straight back to the authors with a rather firm note. Okay, so you've gone to all this trouble preparing your manuscript and you submit it to Crystal Growth and Design. What this video is really about is what happens then to your manuscript. And the answer is we go through some preliminary checks. So we have a very competent editorial staff who will make certain the manuscript is in the correct format and is broadly suitable for the journal. And then it ends up with me. And this is the desktop that I have. And the first thing that will happen when your manuscript is processed by a scientist, by me, is that it will fall into the original manuscripts action list under the assign associate editor category. So I will go into that and I will look at your manuscript and I will make a decision as to whether we want to process it further. And that's the editor-in-chief assessment. The first thing I will look at is the cover letter. The job of the cover letter is to persuade me that this is exciting new science that we want to see in the journal. If your cover letter says that you're submitting a manuscript, the authors will know about it, and you hope it will be published in Critical Growth and Design, you've lost an opportunity to highlight the novelty of the work and get me on side, persuading me that this is something that is exciting, because you couldn't even bother to write about it in the letter. So take it seriously, that the letter is an important thing, and it's the first thing I look at. After that, I will look at the abstract to try and get an idea in my head as to what the paper's about. That's just so that I can understand what the work is saying. I have a fairly broad experience, but obviously there are areas I'm not so expert in, and I need to know what your paper's about. Then I usually look at the conclusions. Is there anything of general interest in the conclusions? Is there anything of importance there? What is it that you've proven and established? If the conclusions are very, very specific to the system in question, then that's unlikely to catch the general interest of the audience of Crystal Growth and Design. So try and think outside of your very specific area and generalize your work if that's appropriate. Another thing I'll look at are the figures, just as a very quick flick through. Are they eye-catching? Does anything jump out as immediately fascinating? If I look at the pictures and think, oh, that's really cool straight away, then it's very likely that I'll be processing that manuscript further without anything else. Crucially, of course, am I able to grasp what the paper's about? Is it enough of my area that I can understand it? And that's if it's not, under those circumstances, I may have to consult with another member of our very broad editorial board, and I'll show you their names in just a moment. We're very fortunate at the journal that we have a lot of expertise, so I can draw upon the board members if I can't understand your paper. Although, of course, if you're going for a general crystallization journal, then you should be able to explain your science in ways that I, as its editor-in-chief, can at least understand, even if it's not my specialist area. I will typically do a literature search. I will look at the references in your paper. I will go onto Web of Science. I will Google the title of your paper just to see if anything pops up that is related to the paper. You'll be surprised how often a simple Googling of the title pops up closely related work, which may limit the novelty of what you've done. So it is these days fairly easy to find related work. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that something will be rejected because it has a similar title to something else, but it's just a good way of finding things that I need to know about that are already out there in the literature. I'm going to be asking the question, is the work incremental? Is it just another step forward that slightly improves at a known area, or are there some really original ideas? Are there some step changes here? It's that latter that I'm keen to see. Is the work suitable for Crystal Growth and Design? Is it within our scope? Or would it be more important to transfer it to another journal? And ACS has a broad portfolio of journals now, well over 50, and just occasionally papers come in that really would be better off in another ACS journal, particularly ACS Omega, which encompasses a great deal of the chemical sciences, as long as the work is competently carried out. At this stage, manuscripts that are kind of stamp collecting, manuscripts that are just a list of compounds or a loose, unfocused collection of results and data will often fail. Don't tell me how many crystal structures you've got in your manuscript. I see manuscripts that report 7 new moth structures. Well, 7's probably no more interesting than 6 if they're all just a diverse collection with no science behind them. It's not a numbers game. It's about what's the science, not the volume of the work. The cover letter in particular is an important opportunity. Mistakes people make. Addressing the wrong journal. You sent it somewhere else, they rejected it, so you think you'll try Crystal Growth and Design, but you couldn't be bothered to check the cover letter properly. And so the old journal is still in there. That doesn't really fill me with confidence. Make your cover letter look professional. Put your institutional logo on it. Address myself or one of the editors by name. Lay it out properly, address the instructions for authors. That's not to say your paper will be rejected if you haven't bothered with a good cover letter, but it's a lost opportunity. It doesn't fill me with confidence if you haven't taken the trouble to write to me and explain to me why it is you're sending the paper to this journal. Explain why the work's suited to Crystal Growth and Design and emphasize its importance. So explain why you see Crystal Growth and Design as a natural home, rather than just one of the journals that you're trying because nowhere else will accept it. Please feel free to suggest a suitable member of the editorial board to handle your manuscript, a suitable associate editor or topic editor. I'll explain more about those in just a moment. It may be me, but more than likely it'll be one of my colleagues who is more of a specialist in your area that will handle your paper. And I'm happy to have your opinion on that if there's somebody you know will be particularly suitable. Here's an example of a cover letter. I just made this one up actually, but would you want to accept a manuscript that came with this cover letter? Dear editor. I've had one that addressed to dear editor. It doesn't fill me with confidence. I'm here with submitting my manuscript, the Solution Chemistry of Antediluvian Chicken Farming. Sounds a little bit specific. To your esteemed journal, the Journal of Non-Applicable Crystallography. Forgot to change the name. The authors are aware of the contents of the work and have agreed the submission, except for one former student we can't find anymore. I'm afraid we can't publish that. We can't publish an article without someone's consent, so you do need to stay in contact with your co-authors. I hope you'll accept the work to the Journal of ACS Crystal Growth and Designing. Yep, you don't even know the title of my journal. Not good. And expect your prompt compliance. Well, I'll make the decisions here. No attempt to persuade me what the work is about and whether it's interesting. No attempt to match it to the journal. I'm going to have a negative impression straight away as I go and look at the abstract and conclusions and try and decide whether there is anything in this manuscript. Let's see if we can do better. This is based on a letter for a paper that I actually wrote myself and did get accepted to a journal. It wasn't Crystal Growth and Design actually. It's a long letter, I won't read all of it out, but let's look at some of the red highlights. It was a paper I happened to have discussed with the editor when we met in Cambridge, and so I've reminded the editor that that was the case. That kind of establishes in this particular chance conversation that I've been thinking about their journal for a long time and was committed to this journal as a home for the manuscript. This paper, in my opinion, reported a completely new technique, something which had never been attempted. Those kinds of phrases, if justified, are the sorts of things that I definitely want to be publishing as an editor. At the end there, we've got that, in my opinion, as the author, the work was likely to be of tremendous importance to the pharmaceutical industry, interest in the nanomaterials and crystal growth communities. There's general interest there. And it's an ideal match for the scope of crystal growth and design. I've actually gone and looked at the scope of the journal. I've added this bit for this video because the interdisciplinary approach of this manuscript matches the journal's aims. And then I've stated some of the journal's aims to show that I've looked at them. So this is a letter that's persuading the editor that you're committed to this particular journal, it's the right home for it. There's a lot of innovation here and it's relevant to the journal's aims. I'm going to be impressed by that and want to look further. If I like the manuscript, if it's suitable for the journal and if it looks like it's got the kinds of new science we're looking at, then it's going to get assigned to an associate or a topic editor. I myself might be the associate editor. I handle a lot of manuscripts, but more often than not, it'll be one of the people you're seeing on the screen there. The difference between the two categories is topic editors are often relatively early career, up-and-coming people that we're excited to have as part of the journal. They tend to handle relatively few manuscripts that are specifically in their topic area, and they might well organise a virtual special issue of a collection of manuscripts that's within their expertise. It's, if you like, a little bit of a chance for them to be involved with the journal at an early stage in their career and get some experience editing. Associate editors are usually more established figures, and we have a total of 7 spanning various geographies, spanning genders, and spanning nationalities, and spanning, of course, topic areas. We can't get an editor of every nationality and every gender in every topic, but we try and spread them around as much as we can to cover the global reach of the journal. And my colleagues as associate editors will handle very many manuscripts per year. They're experts, many of them are very experienced, and between them they have really good coverage of the subject areas that crystal growth and design covers. They also bring a huge amount of prestige to the journal, and many of those names will be familiar to you in the crystallization and crystal growth area. It's a great pleasure to work with them. And so if your manuscript is in their area, then I will assign it to one of them who will take over the handling. If it's not appropriate to any of them, or if they're overloaded, then I'll take it on myself, and you'll find yourself dealing with me as your associate editor as well as the editor-in-chief. So what does the associate editor do once the manuscript has passed that initial screening from me? The associate editor is then the main person who will interact with the referees and will make a final decision on the publication of your manuscript. So when an associate editor receives your manuscript from the editor-in-chief office, they will again consider its suitability, this time from their specialist standpoint. They will likely be more expert in the area than I am. And so they again might decide that at that point the science is not the kind that we're looking for and might reject the manuscript at that point. More than likely, though, given the manuscript has already been screened through the editor-in-chief office, they will continue processing and they will assign referees to the manuscript. We ask you to provide referee suggestions. At least one of those we will always use. And we will always make certain at least one referee is an independent referee that you haven't suggested to make certain that we get that independent oversight. And of course, we will typically assign more than just 2 referees. If you do get asked to referee, please do respond. We really appreciate it. I appreciate that you can't always do so, so do let us know if you can't. Typically, we'll start out by inviting 3 referees, hoping that at least 2 of them will be able to respond in a timely way. And at Crystal Growth and Design, we look for a referee to agree to review within a week. So if a referee hasn't responded with an accept or decline within a week, then it will come back to the associate editor and we will look for another referee to make certain that, that the manuscript doesn't languish. Sometimes you will have a delay, but we're always looking to make certain we move the manuscript forward and that we're asking people to look at it and we don't ignore a manuscript that might not, again, accept from other referees. Once the referee has agreed to review, then we look for a report within 2 weeks, unless they tell us that they need a little bit more time, which is always fine. You can always do that. Once an editor has at least 2 referee reports back, they have absolute discretion to make a final decision on the manuscript, irrespective of the referee recommendations. That may come as a surprise. So if 2 referees disagree, the editor has final say. Even if 2 referees recommend publication, but their reports are not as enthusiastic as we would like, or they have flaws, the editor can choose to ignore those recommendations and make their own decision. The editor is the ultimate arbiter, so it's the editor that you have to persuade. Of course, it's very rare if 2 referees agree on publication that the editor wouldn't publish it, and they would always have a very good reason which they would explain to you. But it is the editor that makes the decision, not the referees. The point of the refereeing process, remember, is to make the manuscript better. We're not wanting to reject your manuscript. We want good manuscripts, we want to publish them, and we want to improve them for you to add value. It would make me very happy if every single manuscript that came in we could publish, we could improve, and we could continually report good science. It would save us an awful lot of time. But often it's not the case. This process is designed to improve the good manuscripts and filter out the ones that are not so appropriate for the journal. Bear in mind also we do have a separate data checking process, particularly that looks at CIF files for crystal structures. So that's done by a dedicated CIF team. Manuscripts have failed at this point because the CIF team will check for prior publication. Of course, as authors, you should be checking the Cambridge Structural Database to see whether your crystal structure has been published before. It's surprising that some people don't. And obviously, if structures have been published before, we can't republish them. I thought it would be fun to share with you what some referees have said. These are real referee reports. They're all quite old, actually, so I won't be treading on too many toes here. But these are the sorts of things that editors have to deal with. And this is why the editor has the final say, because sometimes we deal with some quirky things. One referee said the overall presentation could be improved. The figure is not very attention-getting. It doesn't matter whether I'm reading National Geographic or Angevin Camille. I always look at the pictures first, and there's not a picture of a molecule to be found in this paper. The referee did mention another publication as well that I've edited out there. It's not one that I wanted to talk about in this particular video. I'll leave you to guess what that may have been. It was one that focuses on pictures. Okay, the referee's commenting on presentation. It will make the manuscript better if we can get better presentation, but that wouldn't be grounds for a rejection. So if the referee recommended rejection because the presentation wasn't good enough, that won't be a recommendation that we might bypass and ask the author to improve that aspect, but not reject. Sometimes they're just funny. I refereed this paper on your website on August 14th. I then responded to a reminder from you on August 15th. Sometimes the automated system is a little over enthusiastic. telling you that I'd refereed it. The paper was monumentally dull and I rejected it. Being reminded of the paper repeatedly seemed a little unkind. We do our best to shield the referees. Sorry. Another one. To explain further, I've been waiting for you to send me the in-press article I needed to determine the novelty of the one I was asked to do. I got it yesterday. I think I'm going down the pub now. I may be some time. Referees are human too. We'll wait. Sometimes referees aren't terribly helpful. We really don't need comments like these. The paper is acceptable in its current form. If you could tell us why and what's interesting about it, that would be helpful, because we'll have to tension that against other referee reports. The paper is routine. I have no hesitation in recommending it for publication in Crystal Growth and Design. We don't really want routine papers. It would be nice if you had some awareness of the journal scope, although of course we recognise that we asked you, so all comments we're grateful for. The work described here is interesting. However, I think that this work is not suitable for publication in Crystal Growth and Design and should be submitted in a more specialised journal. Well, if it's interesting, why isn't it suitable? Some connection between those comments would be really helpful to us. You could explain why you think it's interesting but inappropriate. We can't do much with those kinds of comments. We'll have to ask another referee. I thought I would also share with you some real author quotes. Some of these make our day. One author said, I don't know you how to receive our manuscript because I've not sent it to you. I'm surprised when I receive your letter, but I ignore. If something weird has happened, don't ignore it. Tell us we may have made a mistake. I've no idea what went on with that. I understand the problem of summer period to get referees, but we're on October 8th without any comments from you. This is not a good sign. I hope you have not sent our manuscript to USA. That's a really old comment from the days when manuscripts used to go by post, and I guess it would take a long time to post it to the USA. But people are getting frustrated. We do our best to move manuscripts along as fast as we can. Sometimes it's outside of our gift. You'll be amazed sometimes how many referees we have to ask because we can't interest them in your manuscripts. Crazy stuff. Disordered solvent was impossible to model due to disorder and the fact the chemist didn't know what solvent he'd used. It's not going to be great science if you don't know what solvent is in your crystal structure. That doesn't fill us with confidence. Try and keep better records, please. And then sometimes the author comments are just heartwarming. I'm very happy to receive this information from you. It's the first time for my manuscript to be considered to publish. I'm so excited just to cry for this good news. That's what we're aiming for. Makes the day. When you get your referee comments, remember you're trying to persuade the associate editor that you've responded to them and taken account of the referee's genuine constructive criticism to make your manuscript better. And so the associate editor is going to expect you to have done your very best to respond to the referee's comments and change the manuscript in ways that will improve it. So you need to address each point in detail. People are usually very good about that, explaining how you've changed the manuscript in response to the referee's comments. And you should change what you can. If a referee makes a comment you regard as arbitrary, if it's no pain to you, then I would probably change it. The referee's gone to the trouble to make that comment. If it doesn't matter too much to you, then I would do it rather than not do it. But having said that, if you disagree with the changes that a referee requests, it's fine to disagree. You can explain to the editor why that doesn't make scientific sense and why the referee is misunderstood, and the editor will either ask the referee again or they will realise what you're saying and accept your point of view. So you don't have to do what the referees ask, but you need to have a good reason if you want to disagree with them. A scientific misunderstanding kind of reason, not because you think they're being mean to you or you can't be bothered. The whole point here is you need to persuade the associate editor that you've taken the referee comments seriously and made every attempt to improve the manuscript based on the results of those comments. And please don't insult the referees. It's very rare that we see personal comments in either direction. Most of the time referees don't have it in for you. Most of the time they're just trying to do their job. They might have been a little bit unthorough because they're not paid, but keep it to the science, and bear in mind that we may ask them to respond to your comments, or we may show them your changes, so they may see what you're saying, and that doesn't make friends or influence people. Please also bear in mind that we aim to reach a finalised manuscript in a single round of refereeing. So if we have to send it to the referees again, you haven't done what they asked, and the referee becomes frustrated because you've ignored them the first time, that would be grounds for rejection, even if we'd said that the manuscript may provisionally be acceptable. If you're just refusing to improve the manuscript in the ways the referees have asked for, we're not going to keep sending it back to referees and refereeing the fight between the two of you. We want to see you responding seriously to the referee's comments. Otherwise, we'll reject the manuscript. The end result, we hope, is a much improved manuscript that's benefited from the refereeing process, published in the journal. Often we will offer you a cover if you have some particularly nice graphics. We love this cover. It's actually the front cover of the journal that's fronting the day in the life of a lockdown crystal engineer campaign. You can see the logo on the screen there. And this is from Sazerakin and Savchenkov, I hope I've said their names correctly, from the March issue this year. Really lovely cover, looking at analysing non-covalent interactions in aripiprazole polymorphs. And we really enjoyed that. They went to a lot of trouble to produce some great art there. And if you fancy having your art on the cover, it's free, and we very much like to see it. So we make a selection each month. We also do supplementary covers, which we do charge for, that go on the inside of the journal or also on the website. And hopefully your paper will be gracing the journal, and we'll be very pleased to have it. That's everything I really wanted to say today. I hope that's been at least somewhat useful. Thank you very much for watching. Just a few reminders, please. If you want to follow the day in the life of a lockdown crystal engineer this month, subscribe to our Twitter feed. That's at CGD_ACS. We also tweet lots of crystal and science related content, so hopefully you'll find that interesting. Throughout this month, May 2020, we'll be tweeting content with the hashtag #StayHomeDesignCrystals. And that's just to keep us all amused during this COVID-19 crisis. Please send us tweets about your published work that's in the journal, and we will put them onto our Twitter feed and promote your work on your behalf to our following. Also, please do consider, if you are on COVID lockdown, contributing a perspective article to Crystal Growth and Design. I'm very keen to get perspective articles. I really like that format. It's a chance to be a little bit more personal. I don't mean insulting personal. I mean to put your views across, compare and contrast an area, talk about a particular influence that you may have had on an area and bring together some of your papers, or talk about something that's hot, that's more than just a kind of summative review. You can be a little bit more opinionated in a perspective kind of format. If you want more details or want to discuss an idea, please contact me or a member of the editorial board directly, and we're very happy to deal with pre-submission inquiries and give you advice upon content or upon whether a manuscript will be suitable for the journal. So that's it for the moment. Please stay safe during these coronavirus lockdowns, and I look forward to seeing your work in Crystal Growth and Design. Thanks very much.